Amah Faraway was inspired by my relationship with my Amah. She was my only grandparent that I grew up with, and so she was my everything grandparent. She was so important to me. Like Kylie, I grew up in the United States. Kylie's my main character in case people haven't read the book, but Kylie, I grew up in the United States while my Amma lived in Taipei. And whenever we saw each other, which wasn't very often because of the distance, I always hung back and needed some time to warm up. But eventually things would flip after spending some time with her, and I'd be stuck to her side for the rest of her visit. One time, I remember when she was done visiting my family and was ready to visit my uncle's family, I actually wasn't ready for her to leave, so I ended up going with her to visit my uncle's family. Yeah, so the general concept of Ma Faraway that flipped was based on my relationship with my Ama, but then there were specific scenes that were based on when my children visited Taiwan um, with my mom. She was already there for an extended visit, but this was 7 years ago, and she led us around Taipei. She was just like the Emma in the story. Emma in the story leads Kylie all around Taipei. My mom actually dragged us all over the island instead of just Taipei. So, and actually, scene wise, there was one banquet scene in the first half of Amah Faraway that is straight from our visit. On day two of our 10-day visit, my mom threw this huge family banquet and she invited 14 tables of family, most of whom we had never met before. Definitely my kids had never met anyone because they'd never been to Taiwan before. And of course, there was a ton of food, and you'd think that there would be a lot to choose from, right? But just like Kylie in the story, my kids watched all the food come out from the kitchen and then they only ate the rice. So, and I was thinking this was day two of a 10-day visit. So I wondered what my kids were going to eat for the rest of the trip. But this is exactly kind of how they're exactly in the place that Kylie was in the beginning of the book. And they also ended in a similar place that Kylie did at the end of the book. Yeah, it was huge. It was huge. I mean, it was family, and then it was actual family, and then there was family that I wasn't sure how we were related to. But both my grandparents on my mom's side were adopted. So there was biological family and there was adopted family, and so it was everyone. I have actually read my book to my two youngest. My youngest is 7, and then the middle one is now 12. But I read it to them when I first got my copies, and they were entranced. It was really cool to see because, yeah, they just paid so much attention, and they were looking, and they got it. They understood what was going on, and they're like, yeah, it was just like how they were, and so it was really cool. Yeah, so when I first got my copies of the book, I read the book to my 7-year-old and my 12-year-old. My 12-year-old is actually went to Taipei when he was just turning 4. My 7-year-old wasn't yet born. And so, but they both listened and they were entranced by the illustrations, and they my older one, my 12-year-old, saw himself. He saw how he was when he visited Taipei, and then my younger one was just like she really wants to go now. So it was really sweet. Sure. It was, so it's been a long time since I was a child visiting Taipei. And my memories are pretty hazy, but the ones that stand out are uh, arriving in Taipei and traveling by taxi to my Ama's apartment and walking in the dark to her apartment, getting in the elevator, um, and arriving and eating lychee fruit um, as one of the first things we do, sitting down and catching up. Also playing with cousins. Uh, the cousins on my mom's side lived in her childhood home, um, and so it was a fun place to visit. Our cousins spoke a little bit of English, and we spoke a little bit of Taiwanese. I have two brothers, so it was just enough to play some kind of more active games. And so our cousins chased us around. It was just really fun to explore. And the house, it was cool to see where my mom grew up. it was different from the houses here. It was older. There's no carpet. I still remember the smell. Um, but yeah, that was really cool. And then another memory was hanging out on cousins from the other side of the family, my dad's side of the family, and they were older. Um, and actually, these aren't Taiwanese specific, but we just spent a lot of time hanging out at their house, and they were guitar playing, motorcycle riding boys, and I just thought they were the coolest. And then the last memory I'll share is buying things from the night market. So when I was little, I was obsessed with stuffed animals. And they had a ton of stuffed animals at the night market. So it was like my dream. And the animals were so cute and so cheap. So yeah, so I remember my mom buying me one animal in particular. It was a big, flat orange mouse. And I would describe it as, it was not that cute, but I would describe it as, it was huge. It was like a predecessor to the pillow pet. So if you can imagine like how whatever 6-year-old me reacted to that. He remembered certain things, like there's certain things that he remembers. One of which was um, there's some really good pastry stores in Taipei, and we got him this big chocolate. I think it might have been like a chocolate filled eclair. He remembers that. um, and he remembers, I mean, he remembers a lot from because we have a lot of pictures. So, you know, we didn't see each other that often, maybe once every year or two, she would come. And I think we went to Taiwan maybe, maybe only twice or three times in my childhood. Um, but yeah, once I got past that initial warming up period, we had a close relationship. Like I said, I was stuck to her side as soon as I warmed up to her. She was really like very proper. She was raised during the Japanese occupation. She was a teacher, so she had like a very gentle way about her, but she could also be stern because I think that was a teacher in her. But she would instruct us on like the proper way of doing things, but like in like a really gentle and humorous way. Like how to receive a red envelope. Like she always, whenever she came, she always gave us a red envelope. Um, so yeah, yeah, that's how we saw her most because we didn't go back as that much. Yeah. Since the editor usually chooses the illustrator, I didn't really think much about what type of illustrator I wanted. I focused more on, you know, the things that I can control, which was the words. But I'm really grateful that Tracy Subisak, who's half Taiwanese, illustrated Amah Faraway because she's lived in Taiwan and speaks Mandarin. So she was able to add a lot of Taiwanese detail to her illustration. When I saw the illustrations for the first time, I felt like she had been to Taiwan with me. She deepened the sense of place in the story by adding things like Mandarin menus and specific Taiwanese foods and items that could be found that would be found at the night market. She chose settings for scenes that I only like specified in a general way, like I might have said at the park or at the hot springs. Well, she set the park scene at Da'an Park, which is a real park, and the hot springs at Beito. Um, and so that was really nice that she was able to add that specificity. She even added, because she knows Mandarin, she even added side conversations in Mandarin between Amah and Mama in the story. And in the end papers, actually, I'm going to show you the end papers, and I can show you the side conversations. This is an example of the Mandarin that Tracy added. It's a conversation between Amah and Mama. So these are kind of scattered throughout the book. And I thought that was really nice. It was nice for a nice little Easter egg for people that do speak Mandarin. And also it was nice to show how, because Kylie doesn't really understand Mandarin very well. So it was nice kind of to show how she didn't understand. And then the end papers, these are the end papers. It's like you can do a search and find. These illustrations occur through the book. And in the beginning, they're labeled in English. But then the reverse at the end, the end papers, it's the same sort of scribbles, and she made them in Mandarin. So yeah, so people that are learning Mandarin who want to, yeah, who want to learn Mandarin are able to use it.